Okay, imagine this. A country secretly builds a full-blown nuclear arsenal, becoming one of the most clandestine and feared powers on the planet. Then, right as the world is changing, it does something that no other nation has ever done. It just gives them all up, voluntarily. This isn't the plot of some spy thriller. It's the absolutely wild and true story of South Africa's nuclear weapons. So let's get into it. This right here is the big question, the one we're going to unpack. It is a story packed with fear, with power, with decisions that shocked the world, and a debate that, believe it or not, is flaring up all over again today. What pushes a nation to the absolute brink? And what, or maybe who, convinces it to step back? So here's our roadmap. We're going to look at why South Africa's story is totally unique, then dive into why they built the bomb in the first place. After that, we'll cover the even crazier story of why they destroyed it. And then we're jumping straight into today's fiery online debate about rearming. We'll look at the massive consequences and finish with the huge choice the nation is facing right now.
First things first, let's just be really clear about how much of a one-off this whole story is. We're talking globally unprecedented.
Yeah, let that sink in. South Africa is completely alone on this. I mean, sure, you had countries like Ukraine and Kazakhstan that inherited Soviet weapons and then gave them up, but that was under massive international pressure. South Africa is the only one to build its own program from the ground up and then make the conscious decision to tear it all down. That one choice completely changed its place in the world.
So, how in the world did this secret arsenal even happen? Well, the story really starts with the deep paranoia and isolation of the apartheid regime.
You know, this wasn't some snap decision. The talk started way back in the 60s as the world was turning its back on South Africa. But the real catalyst was in 1974. The Portuguese colonial empire collapsed, and suddenly you had Soviet-backed governments popping up next door. That fear just kicked the program into overdrive. And by the early 80s, they had done it. They had 6 working bombs, specifically gun-type fission weapons. The tech is actually pretty straightforward, but totally devastating. You literally fire one piece of uranium into another, like a bullet hitting a target, and boom, nuclear explosion. And they pulled all of this off in total secrecy.
Now, the reasons for building the bomb weren't simple. They actually changed a lot over time. At first, it was pure prestige. It was this powerful symbol of Afrikaner strength. But as the Cold War started creeping into southern Africa, the regime went into this fortress mentality. The bomb became their ultimate insurance policy. It was a desperate plan to stop a Soviet-backed invasion and, this is key, to use as a massive bargaining chip with the West.
And this gets to their truly wild strategy. It wasn't your classic nuclear deterrence, attack me and I'll nuke you. This was something they called catalytic deterrence. The plan was, if a huge invasion was about to happen, South Africa would reveal its arsenal to the world. The goal wasn't to bomb Moscow, it was to freak out Washington, to force the US to jump in and stop a regional war from going nuclear. It was an incredibly risky, high-stakes bluff.
But then, just as the world was turning on its head with the end of the Cold War, South Africa made a call that absolutely stunned everybody. The Great Reversal.
Okay, the reasons for giving up the bomb are just as messy as the reasons for building it. Officially, the story from President F.W. de Klerk was pretty simple. The Cold War was over, Cuban troops were leaving Angola, so the threats were gone. But behind the scenes, a lot of people think other things were going on. The biggest theory? The white minority government was terrified of those bombs falling into the hands of Nelson Mandela's incoming ANC government. At the same time, you had the US applying insane pressure, supposedly threatening to label South Africa a hostile nation if it didn't get rid of them.
And the teardown was fast. By 1991, the bombs were gone. South Africa signed the big global non-proliferation treaty, and then it went even further, championing something called the Pelindaba Treaty, which basically declared all of Africa a nuclear weapon-free zone. It was a total 180. The country went from a pariah state with a secret bomb to a global champion of disarmament, trying to lead through moral authority instead of raw power.
But, as we all know, history doesn't always stay in the past. In our increasingly chaotic world, a new, very vocal movement is asking a deeply controversial question. Was giving up the bomb a huge mistake?
You see this kind of sentiment popping up all over social media. It really gets to the heart of the new argument. In a world that feels like it's on a knife's edge, some people are starting to see nuclear weapons not as aggression, but as the only real insurance policy a nation can have.
And the ambition here is even bigger. This isn't just about protecting South Africa, it's a Pan-African vision. The idea is for South Africa to lead again, but this time by creating a nuclear umbrella for the whole continent as a way to push back against Western influence. So what's driving all this? It's a pretty powerful mix. You've got general anxiety about global instability. This belief that only countries with nukes, like North Korea, are truly safe from being messed with. And then you have specific events that seem to prove that if you don't have the bomb, you're vulnerable. Now, we should be clear, this online movement is loud, but it is still a minority view and it's a long, long way from being official government policy. But talking about it online is one thing. Actually doing it, that's another story entirely. If South Africa were to try and rebuild its arsenal, it would run headfirst into a massive wall of consequences. Legally speaking, the door is pretty much slammed shut, locked, and barricaded. South Africa championed the treaty, making Africa nuclear-free. It signed the big Non-Proliferation Treaty. It even made history again by being the first country to have had nukes and then join a treaty that totally bans them. To rearm would mean breaking a whole web of international laws that it helped write. And this table here really just spells out the harsh truth. Beyond breaking the law, rearming would instantly destroy South Africa's international reputation. It would be a pariah all over again. And there's this deterrence myth, the idea that a few new bombs would make you safer. Well, they could actually make you more of a target for a preventative strike. And on a practical level, the country just doesn't have the modern planes or missiles to even deliver a nuke anymore.
Oh, and then there's the cost. Just to give you a little perspective, the United States is expected to spend around $1 trillion, that's trillion with a T, just to maintain and update its arsenal over the next 10 years. For South Africa, even a small program would cost tens of billions. That's money that wouldn't be going to fix the energy crisis, or to healthcare, or to creating jobs.
And this quote right here really sums up what pretty much every expert says. When you actually add it all up, the costs, strategic, legal, economic, are just astronomical. They completely dwarf any security benefits you might think you're getting.
So, all of this brings us back to the core choice at the heart of the debate. And it's about so much more than just weapons. It's really about what kind of country South Africa wants to be in the 21st century.
And the two possible futures could not look more different. One path leads straight back to isolation, to economic pain, maybe even a regional arms race. The other path builds on the legacy of 1991, using that unique moral high ground and soft power to lead on the world stage, which in turn helps attract investment and keep the region stable. The choice is pretty stark.
And that leaves us with this final question. South Africa's story forces all of us to think about what real strength even is. In a world that feels increasingly anxious and dangerous, is true security found in the destructive power of a bomb or in the constructive power of setting an example? It's a question that echoes far, far beyond South Africa's borders.